Hello, fellow gardeners. Welcome back to Don't Do This Guide, your ultimate destination for avoiding common pitfalls in everyday life. If you're passionate about plants or just starting your gardening journey, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you find it helpful. Let's dig into the top companion planting mistakes you might be making without even realizing it. The plant world is a bit like any good village, full of characters. Some are naturally gregarious, happy to mingle and share their space. Others prefer their own company. Take fennel, for instance. A handsome plant, no doubt, with its feathery foliage and aniseed scent. But oh my, it's a notorious loner. Fennel releases chemicals into the soil that can stunt the growth of its neighbors. Beans, tomatoes, even other herbs, they all wilt under its influence. Potatoes and tomatoes, for example, are both susceptible to blight, and planting them together can increase the risk of spreading this damaging disease. So, before you go merrily tucking plants in together, do a bit of research. Find out who's happy to cohabit and who needs a bit of breathing space. A well-placed companion can work wonders, but an incompatible pairing can spell disaster for your harvest. Remember, in the garden, as in life, a little understanding goes a long way. We've all been tempted, haven't we? Squeezing in just one more tomato plant, tucking a few lettuce seedlings between the courgettes. But overcrowding is a recipe for disappointment. When plants are too close together, they're competing for light, nutrients, and air circulation. Without enough light, plants become leggy and weak. Poor air circulation creates the perfect breeding ground for fungal diseases. So, what's the solution? Follow the recommended spacing guidelines on seed packets or plant labels. It might seem generous at first, but trust me, your plants will thank you for it. Remember, a little breathing room goes a long way in creating a healthy and productive garden. Healthy soil is the foundation of a thriving garden. Different plants have different appetites. Some, like leafy greens, are content with a modest meal. Others, like tomatoes and courgettes, are heavy feeders. Imagine planting a group of heavy feeders year after year in the same spot. Eventually, those nutrient reserves are going to run dry. That's where composting and crop rotation come in. Compost replenishes vital nutrients, and crop rotation ensures that the same nutrients aren't being depleted year after year. By taking care of our soil, we're not just feeding our plants, we're nurturing the very ecosystem that sustains them. The plant world is full of surprises, and one of the most fascinating is allelopathy. Some plants release chemicals into the soil that can inhibit the growth of other plants. It's their way of saying, "This is my territory." One of the most notorious allelopathic plants is the black walnut tree. Juglone, a chemical produced by black walnut trees, can be toxic to many other plants, particularly those in the nightshade family. But it's not just black walnut trees. Sunflowers release toxins that can inhibit the growth of nearby plants, and some ferns suppress the germination of seeds. If you have allelopathic plants in your garden, be mindful of their potential impact on their neighbors. Research compatible companions or give those sensitive souls a wide berth. Pests are an inevitable part of gardening life. Some plants can actually attract these unwanted guests, putting their neighbors at risk. Take cabbage, for instance. A fine vegetable, but a magnet for cabbage white butterflies. Their offspring, those voracious caterpillars, can decimate a crop of cabbage in no time. Similarly, planting fragrant herbs like dill and fennel can attract spider mites, and alyssum attracts aphids. Instead of planting enticing targets for pests, consider companion plants that act as deterrents. Marigolds, for example, are renowned for their pest-repelling properties. Planting them alongside vulnerable plants can help to keep those unwanted visitors at bay. Let's not forget the magic of companion planting at its best, those harmonious partnerships where plants work together. Take tomatoes and basil, for instance. Basil helps to deter tomato hornworms and may improve the flavor of tomatoes. Carrots and onions create a formidable alliance against carrot root flies and onion flies. These beneficial relationships extend beyond pest control. Some plants, like legumes, have the remarkable ability to fix nitrogen from the air, making it available to their neighbors. Planting legumes alongside nitrogen-loving plants like broccoli and kale can boost their growth and yield. Think about those dynamic duos, those plant partnerships that can enhance growth, deter pests, and create a more harmonious and productive garden. Plants, just like people, have their own personalities, their own ways of growing and interacting with the world. When we're planting companions, it's crucial to consider these growth habits. Planting a towering sunflower next to a dwarf French bean, for instance, is a recipe for disaster. The sunflower will quickly cast the poor bean into shade. Similarly, pairing a sprawling pumpkin with a compact lettuce is a recipe for competition. Plant tall, sun-loving crops together, and pair them with shorter, shade-tolerant companions. A little foresight goes a long way in creating a garden where every plant has the space and light it needs to flourish. Different plants have different appetites. Some, like leafy greens, are content with a modest meal. Others, like tomatoes and courgettes, are heavy feeders. Imagine planting a group of heavy feeders year after year in the same spot. Eventually, those nutrient reserves are going to run dry. That's why it's crucial to avoid planting heavy feeders together. Crop rotation ensures that the same nutrients aren't being depleted year after year. Balanced fertilization replenishes those vital nutrients that heavy feeders crave. By being mindful of our plants' appetites and providing them with the nourishment they need, we can create a garden that's both productive and sustainable. Gardening is all about timing. Sowing seeds at the right time, planting out at the right time, harvesting at the peak of perfection. Different plants have different growth rates and life cycles. Planting a fast-growing crop alongside a slow-growing one can create an imbalance. Imagine planting lettuce alongside tomatoes. The lettuce might be ready for harvest before the tomatoes have even begun to flower. Consider staggering your plantings, sowing fast-growing crops a few weeks after slower-growing companions. Choose companions with similar growth rates and life cycles. Timing is everything in the garden, and a little planning can make all the difference in creating a harmonious and productive space. Invasive plants are those that, once introduced to a new environment, have a knack for outcompeting native species, spreading rapidly and disrupting the delicate balance of ecosystems. Some of these invasive plants are often marketed as companion plants, touted for their ability to attract pollinators or deter pests. Take mint, for instance, a wonderful herb, but it spreads like wildfire. Plant mint in your garden, and you'll soon find it popping up everywhere. Before you introduce any new plant to your garden, do your research. Check its invasive potential in your region. If in doubt, err on the side of caution. Prevention is always better than cure, especially when it comes to those botanical bullies. Be informed and cautious. Gardening is full of folklore, those passed-down tales and tips that have been shared through generations. While many of these old wives' tales hold true, there are just as many myths and misconceptions, particularly when it comes to companion planting. Take, for instance, the belief that marigolds repel all pests. While it's true that marigolds can deter certain pests, they're not a magical force field against all unwanted visitors. Another common myth is that all herbs make good companion plants. Some, like fennel, are known to inhibit the growth of nearby plants. Approach companion planting with a healthy dose of skepticism and rely on scientific evidence and reputable sources. Don't be afraid to experiment in your own garden, but always be prepared to adapt your methods based on observation and experience. Gardening is a journey of discovery, and by being open to learning and adapting, we can create gardens that are both productive and in harmony with nature. And there you have it, 11 companion planting mistakes you might be unintentionally causing. By sidestepping these common errors, you're setting yourself up for a bountiful and healthy garden. If you found value in this video, smash that like button and subscribe to Don't Do This Guide for more tips on what not to do. We've got a whole garden of wisdom to share. Happy gardening, everyone!